Welcome to History's Hidden Trails. I'm Mimi, your guide on a journey to uncover the history of nations and why they beckon you to explore today. Today, we're setting our compass to Cuba, an island nation bursting with vibrant culture and captivating history. I became more interested in Cuba when my grandmother returned from her month-long trip there. She doesn't really ever travel, but her experience with Cuba filled her with such a sense of joy and wonder that she's planning to return there very soon. Nestled in the heart of the Caribbean, Cuba is like a time capsule, whispering tales of a rich and tumultuous past. Imagine strolling down cobblestone streets lined with grand colonial architecture, frozen in time. Picture yourself sipping a mojito, listening to the soulful rhythms of salsa music, and feeling the pulse of a nation that dances to its own beat. From the moment you set foot on Cuban soil, you're enveloped in a sensory experience unlike any other. The aroma of strong, sweet coffee fills the air, mingling with the salty tang of the ocean breeze. The sounds of laughter and lively chatter echo through the plazas, inviting you to join the fiesta. And as you delve deeper, beneath the surface of sun-drenched beaches and vibrant music, you'll discover a history as complex and captivating as the island itself. Cuba's story is a tapestry woven with threads of indigenous cultures, Spanish colonialism, revolutionary fervor, and resilience. It's a story of triumph and hardship, of music and revolution, all painted against a backdrop of breathtaking natural beauty. From the legendary streets of Havana, where vintage cars cruise past crumbling facades, to the verdant valleys of Vinales, Cuba is a feast for the senses. Explore the cobblestone streets of Trinidad, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and step back in time to the days of sugar barons and colonial grandeur. Dive into the turquoise waters off the coast, teeming with marine life, and discover a world of underwater wonders. Hike through lush rainforests, climb towering mountains, and soak in the raw beauty of Cuba's diverse landscapes. But Cuba is more than just a pretty face. It's a country with a soul as captivating as its scenery. It's a place where the rhythm of life is infectious, where music spills out from every doorway, and where the locals greet you with warmth and hospitality. Before Columbus, Cuba was home to the Taino people, skilled navigators and artisans living in harmony with the land. They fished in rich waters and cultivated crops like cassava and tobacco. The Taino were known for their intricate pottery and vibrant religious ceremonies. Imagine their surprise when, in 1492, Columbus's ships appeared, forever altering Cuban history. He claimed the island for Spain, believing he had reached the East Indies, marking a new chapter of cultural exchange and tragic conquest. The Spanish, seeking gold and glory, initially encountered a peaceful people. The Taino welcomed them, offering gifts and sharing their knowledge of the land. However, this peaceful coexistence was short-lived. The Spanish soon began to exploit the island and its people. The Spanish quickly realized Cuba's strategic importance in the Caribbean. Its location made it an ideal base for their expanding empire in the New World. Havana, with its natural deep-water harbor, transformed into a bustling port, a central hub for trade and the Spanish fleet. Fortresses and cities sprung up across the island, built with the sweat and toil of indigenous labor. The Spanish established vast plantations to cultivate sugarcane, tobacco, and coffee. These cash crops, destined for European markets, fueled Spain's economy. However, this prosperity came at a steep price. The indigenous population, decimated by disease and forced labor, dwindled. To meet the demand for labor, the Spanish began to transport enslaved Africans to Cuba. This tragic chapter in Cuban history would have profound and lasting consequences. It shaped the island's social fabric for centuries to come. The 18th and 19th centuries saw Cuba transformed into the world's leading sugar producer. Vast plantations, fueled by the labor of enslaved Africans, dominated the landscape. The sugar trade brought immense wealth to a select few, but for the majority of Cubans, life was one of hardship and oppression. The stark contrast between the opulent lifestyles of the Spanish elite and the brutal conditions endured by enslaved Africans created a powder keg of resentment. The seeds of rebellion were sown. Inspired by the ideals of liberty and equality, Cubans began to challenge Spanish rule. This growing discontent found expression in various forms, from slave revolts to clandestine literary societies. Names like José Martí emerged, advocating for Cuban self-determination and inspiring generations to fight for their freedom. The stage was set for a long and bloody struggle for independence. The year was 1868, and the cry for Cuba Libre echoed across the island. The 10 Years' War, Cuba's first major war for independence, had begun. Fueled by years of simmering resentment against Spanish colonial rule, Cubans from all walks of life united in their desire for freedom. Carlos Manuel de Céspedes, a sugar planter who freed his slaves to join the fight, emerged as a key leader of the rebellion. Imagine the courage it took to risk everything for the dream of a free Cuba. The rebels, outmatched in numbers and weaponry, fought with fierce determination and a deep love for their homeland. The war raged for a decade, a brutal and bloody conflict that ravaged the island. The rebels, employing guerrilla tactics, fought valiantly against the better-equipped Spanish army. Stories of their bravery and sacrifices became woven into the fabric of Cuban identity. Though ultimately unsuccessful, the 10 Years' War had a profound impact. It solidified a sense of Cuban national identity, forging a shared experience of struggle and sacrifice. The Mambises, the name given to Cuban rebel soldiers, gained legendary status, becoming symbols of courage and resistance. The embers of rebellion, though smoldering, were far from extinguished. In the late 19th century, a new generation of Cuban patriots took up the mantle of independence. At the forefront stood José Martí, a poet, journalist, and visionary leader. Martí, exiled from Cuba for his revolutionary activities, tirelessly campaigned for Cuban independence from afar. He understood that to achieve true liberation, Cubans needed to be united. He envisioned a Cuba free from both Spanish colonialism and foreign interference. In 1895, Martí's vision ignited the Second War for Independence. He returned to Cuba, landing on the island's eastern shores to join the fight alongside other key figures like Antonio Maceo and Máximo Gómez. Together, they galvanized the Cuban people, uniting them under the banner of a free and independent Cuba. Martí, tragically, was killed in battle early in the war. His death, however, only strengthened the resolve of the Cuban people. They would fight on, inspired by his words and unwavering belief in their cause. The struggle for independence continued, fueled by the blood of martyrs and the spirit of a people determined to be free. As the war raged on, a new player entered the fray: the United States. When the U.S. battleship Maine exploded in Havana Harbor in 1898, the stage was set for direct American intervention. The U.S. declared war on Spain, ostensibly to support Cuban independence. The Spanish-American War ended with Spain's defeat and the Treaty of Paris in 1898. The island had finally broken free from colonial shackles. This period saw the rise of Fulgencio Batista, a charismatic but authoritarian figure who would come to dominate Cuban politics for over 2 decades. Batista's rule, marked by corruption and inequality, sowed the seeds of discontent. Wealth was concentrated in the hands of a privileged few, often linked to foreign interests, while the majority struggled to make ends meet. Luxurious resorts stood in stark contrast to the poverty faced by many. In this climate, a young revolutionary named Fidel Castro would emerge. Castro captured the imagination of the Cuban people. He ignited a firestorm that would transform the island nation forever. Castro, deeply affected by poverty and injustice, believed only radical transformation could free Cuba from corruption. His fiery rhetoric rallied the Cuban people to his cause. They saw in him a leader who understood their struggles. In 1953, Castro launched an attack on the Moncada barracks. Though captured, his trial made him a national hero. Released in 1955, Castro went into exile in Mexico to plan the revolution. Joined by Raúl Castro and Che Guevara, they formed the 26th of July movement. In December 1956, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and 82 other revolutionaries aboard the Grama yacht landed on Cuban soil. The landing marked the beginning of a 2-year guerrilla war. Outnumbered and outgunned, they sought refuge in the Sierra Maestra Mountains. They endured harsh conditions, relying on local support to survive. Their ranks swelled with young Cubans inspired by social justice. Castro used radio broadcasts to rally support and undermine Batista. Small victories turned public opinion against Batista. By 1958, the tide had turned decisively in favor of the revolution. On January 1, 1959, Batista fled Cuba, marking the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. The streets of Havana erupted in jubilation as Castro entered the capital. The Cuban people placed their hopes in these young revolutionaries. Section 4. The Cold War Crucible. Cuba on the world stage. The Cuban Revolution quickly became embroiled in the geopolitical tensions of the Cold War. The United States viewed Castro's government with suspicion and hostility. Castro's alliance with the Soviet Union strained relations further. The U.S. responded with economic sanctions and covert operations. The Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 failed, strengthening Castro's power. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 highlighted Cuba's strategic importance. Cuba transformed into a symbol of resistance against U.S. imperialism. Castro championed socialist ideals and challenged U.S. dominance. The Cold War shaped Cuba's political, economic, and social landscape. Section 1. The Special Period. Navigating Crisis and Change. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 triggered a profound crisis in Cuba, known as the Special Period. Imagine a nation suddenly cut off from its lifeline. The impact was immediate and severe. Fuel shortages, factory closures, and food shortages became commonplace. Bicycles replaced cars, and urban gardens sprouted everywhere. The government implemented reforms to mitigate the crisis, promoting organic agriculture, tourism, and limited private enterprise. This period revealed the resilience and resourcefulness of the Cuban people. Despite the economic hardships and political isolation, Cuba's vibrant culture not only endured but thrived. It's a culture born from a unique blend of indigenous traditions, Spanish colonial influences, African rhythms, and revolutionary fervor. Imagine yourself strolling down a street in Havana, the air filled with the intoxicating rhythms of salsa music spilling out from open doorways. Couples dance with an effortless grace, their bodies moving as one to the beat of the conga drums. Music is the lifeblood of Cuba, a constant companion from cradle to grave. But Cuban culture is more than just music and dance. It's also the vibrant colors of its art, from the bold, graphic posters of the revolution to the intricate, naive paintings depicting everyday life. It's the aroma of strong, sweet coffee and the taste of ropa vieja, a traditional dish that reflects the island's culinary fusion. Religion, too, plays a significant role in Cuban culture, with Catholicism blending seamlessly with Afro-Cuban religions like Santeria. Witness a Santeria ceremony, and you'll be captivated by the drumming, the chanting, and the vibrant costumes as practitioners connect with the orishas, the deities of the Yoruba pantheon. Literature, too, has flourished in Cuba, with renowned authors like Alejo Carpentier, José Lezama Lima, and Leonardo Padura Fuentes, exploring themes of identity, history, and the human condition. Cuba today stands at a crossroads, grappling with economic development while preserving its socialist ideals and unique cultural identity. The passing of Fidel Castro in 2016 marked the end of an era, but the revolution's legacy looms large. The island nation is undergoing a noticeable transformation. Internet access is expanding, connecting Cubans to the world. Entrepreneurship is gaining traction, adding dynamism to the economy. Tourism brings foreign exchange but raises cultural concerns. Vintage cars evoke nostalgia, a reminder of a bygone era. Yet, Cuba's unique warmth, music, and architecture endure. Ready to step back in time and experience Cuba's captivating history firsthand? Let's chart a course through some of the island's most iconic historical landmarks. First stop, Havana, a city where time seems to stand still. Old Havana, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is like a living museum of colonial grandeur. Next, we have El Morro Fortress, guarding the entrance to Havana Bay. The Museum of the Revolution offers a fascinating glimpse into the Cuban Revolution. Finally, visit Santa Clara and pay your respects at the Che Guevara Mausoleum. Cuba's cultural tapestry is as rich and diverse as its history. From the soulful rhythms of salsa music to the vibrant colors of its art, Cuba is a feast for the senses. Havana's Malecón is a must-see. No trip to Cuba is complete without a stroll along this iconic seawall. This 5-mile stretch is a microcosm of Cuban life. Callejón de Jamel is a celebration of Afro-Cuban culture and art. Experience the pulsating rhythms of rumba music during weekend performances. Step back in time in Trinidad, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Visit the Plaza Mayor, the heart of the city. Escape to the Viñales Valley, known for its limestone formations and tobacco plantations. Visit a tobacco farm to learn about cigar making. Ready to book your Cuban adventure? Here are a few practical travel tips to help you navigate this unique and rewarding destination. Most visitors to Cuba will need a tourist card, also known as a visa. Cuba has 2 currencies: the Cuban convertible peso, CUC, and the Cuban peso, CUP. Exchange your currency at official exchange bureaus, called cadecas, or banks for the best rates. Cuba offers a range of accommodation options, from all-inclusive resorts to charming casas particulares. Getting around Cuba is an adventure. Vintage American cars, known as almendrones, are a popular way to travel short distances. Via Azul buses offer affordable transportation between major cities. Cuban cuisine is a delightful blend of Spanish, African, and Caribbean influences. Don't miss out on traditional dishes like ropa vieja and lechon asado. And of course, no trip to Cuba is complete without sipping on a refreshing mojito or a daiquiri. Cubans are generally warm and welcoming people. Be respectful of local customs and traditions. From the sun-drenched beaches of Varadero to the cobblestone streets of Old Havana, Cuba beckons with a siren song of history, culture, and adventure. It's a land where time seems to move to a different beat, where the echoes of a revolutionary past mingle with the pulsating rhythms of salsa music. It's a place that will challenge your perspectives, ignite your senses, and stay with you long after you've returned home. So, what are you waiting for? Pack your bags, grab your dancing shoes, and get ready to experience the magic of Cuba for yourself. Uncover the layers of its complex history, lose yourself in the rhythm of its music, savor the flavors of its cuisine, and embrace the warmth of its people. Cuba is waiting to share its story with you, a story that will captivate your heart and leave you yearning for more. This is Mimi, your guide on history's hidden trails. reminding you to experience the past, travel the present. Until next time, keep exploring.